Hey, what's going on? In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 must-reads for developing willpower, the best books you can find on cultivating self-control and developing what's scientifically referred to as self-regulation. All right, my name is Brian Ogilvy. I'm the author of a book called How to Conquer Yourself, but today we're not really going to talk about my book. I'm going to talk about some of the resources I use to put it all together, the top 3 literary gems in the bibliography as related to this topic. Because let's face it, there's a lot of stuff out there that's just too cheesy, that lacks substance. You know what I mean? Like finding that right mix between a book that's sophisticated enough to give you something you don't already know, but also straightforward enough to have some real application is very difficult. So let's get started. The first is Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength by Roy Baumeister and John Turney. This was published by Penguin in 2011. Roy Baumeister is a social psychologist at Florida State University, and John Turney is a scientific journalist for the New York Times. He writes this column called Findings. And this gives you the historical, the scientific, and the social perspective, which is a lot more important than most people tend to think initially. Like, it gives you a good sense of how our cultural idea of what willpower is has evolved and changed over time, as well as the research experience, the new experiments, the new terminology, and a good sense of how to think about it scientifically or methodically, rather than just as this generalized notion that most people carry. As they say in the book, self-regulation failure is the major social pathology of our time. The inability to have self-control is the major mental illness that we're facing as a world, because the way society is structured makes it far more difficult than it's historically been, both in terms of technology and in terms of how liberal we've become as a world, as a people, especially here in the West. The second book is The Willpower Instinct, How Self-Control Works, Why It Matters, and What You Can Do to Get More of It by Kelly McGonigal. This was also published by Penguin, a press called Avery, I think, a little more than a year later in 2012. Here's a picture of Kelly. She has a lot of work she's done in the past on yoga. She teaches a course at Stanford. She does a lot of cool stuff. But she doesn't just give you the historical or the social perspective. This, out of all the 3 books, offers the most practicality. Like, she gives you a ton of stories, of course, then she goes right into the ideas and the techniques. And then she also has a lot on mental willpower, on how to actually control your thoughts specifically, which is pretty cool towards the end of the book. As she says, willpower is an energy dynamic in the body and mind, not a virtue to be found in one's character. Because the more you think of it as an energy gauge rather than something to do with your personality, the more likely you'll set up the strategies that you need and the behavioral habits you need to sustain it throughout the day, rather than just squander it haphazardly and then beat yourself up about it after the fact. The third book in the series is The Power of Full Engagement. Managing energy, not time, is the key to high performance and personal renewal. This came out a lot early in 2003 by Tony Schwartz, who's the CEO of the Energy Project, and Jim Lear, who's known as performance psychologist. This is Tony Schwartz. He basically coaches leaders to develop willpower throughout their organization. And Jim Lear is what's known as a performance psychologist. These guys, they've been in Harvard Business Review, Fortune, Time, Fast Company. They've been everywhere. And what they give is the best overall framework for understanding willpower. So what's funny is that this is the book that doesn't use the word willpower per se. They just say, you know, get focused, stay engaged, stay energized. But what they're talking about is essentially the same thing. And what they do give you is techniques for each level of the self, or each aspect of the human identity. So there's willpower for the physical level. Then they have a part on willpower for the emotional level. Then willpower for the mental level. And then lastly, willpower for the spiritual level. Spirituality is just meaning your values, what you deem to be of significance in life. So it's a complete system of thought, and it's very thorough. As they say, we grow in the aspects of life that we feed with energy and engagement, and we choke off those aspects of life we deprive fuel. So here there's those 3 titles again. And remember, all these people have great TED Talks online and stuff like that, but remember to actually read the books, because that's where the value is, even if you have to go to a library. Like, in this digital age, I think one bad habit we have is we hear about something cool, or we find out about a new person's body of work, and what we do is we skim the web and we do a very superficial overview. And then we get distracted by these other links and pop-ups. So it just becomes this big mess of data and information in our minds. So we speed through the info superhighway, and we don't actually explore the different neighborhoods. You know what I mean? And we're the ones who lose out when we do this, because the authors get misrepresented and misunderstood, and then we lose out because we don't learn as much, because we don't give them the real opportunity to challenge our thinking in the way they originally intended. Also, remember, when I recommend a book, I'm recommending the book, not everything every person has ever said in every radio interview or every single last article you can find in the, bygone edges of web space or whatever. Here's my contact info for any questions, concerns. I do consultations, a lot of cool stuff. And also my book, How to Conquer Yourself, you can get 2 free chapters from it on my site, dotheknowledge.com. Dotheknowledge.com is essentially a blog with videos, podcasts, etc. But you can get 2 free chapters of the book to get a sense of my writing style, my teaching style before you invest. You'll see it right there on the right side of the blog. It's pretty obvious. So again, remember, willpower is very important. Check these books out and, get to your literary habits. I'm Brian Ogilvy, and you can find me at dotheknowledge.com. Thanks again, and take care.